I want to bring in Michael Daniel. He's the former cybersecurity coordinator for President Obama, and he now heads up the Cyber Threat Alliance. Michael, this ransomware is asking companies to pay to recover files, but we had already heard from Tom Bossert at the White House that even the money paid, I think he said $70,000, has not resulted in recovering any files. Should people be paying or not?
So I think that right now we don't have any confirmed instances of people who have paid actually getting a decryption key that would enable them to recover their files. So at this point, I certainly couldn't urge that people pay. Instead, I would urge people to try to be working and restore their systems from backups.
Microsoft President Brad Smith, he said the attack used exploits stolen from the National Security Agency. What exactly does that mean, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, I can't comment on the specifics of whether or not this particular set of exploits was taken from the National Security Agency. But what we do know is that the WannaCry malware seems to be almost a cut and paste job from some exploits that were released onto the web by the Shadow Brokers group back in mid-April. They claim to have gotten those from NSA, but I can't speak to the veracity of that.
He also wrote this in a blog post that I found chilling, quote, "This attack provides yet another example of why the stockpiling of vulnerabilities by governments is such a problem." What exactly does that mean, and do you agree? Because for many of us who haven't, I'm going to jinx myself and get attacked tonight, we feel disconnected from this. But how dangerous is it? What does it mean?
Well, the argument that Brad was laying out in that particular post is this idea that the U.S. government and other governments around the world research and discover vulnerabilities in software systems and then hoard them in some sort of large pile or stockpile of them inside the government for use by intelligence agencies and law enforcement. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, that's just not how it actually works. The government actually has a very strong bias towards disclosure. It's in their interest to actually disclose vulnerabilities. After all, the government depends on the economy functioning well. It depends on businesses functioning well. The government relies on all these systems for national security purposes. So it's just not in the government's interest to stockpile a large number of vulnerabilities.
And while you're not inside the administration now, so you don't have all the information, can you just put into perspective for us, how does this attack compare to what we've seen in the past?
Well, it's certainly a new variant, and I would say the combination of ransomware with a worm, so you could almost call this a ransom worm, is really the first time we've seen these two things put together, these two types of malware put together in this kind of fashion. But we've certainly seen larger volumes of infections, even from like the Mirai botnet this past year, or greater impacts across the world. But this is certainly a very, very significant development and a very, very significant threat to a lot of systems.
All right, Michael, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts today.